You know that saying, garbage in, garbage out? It's like something your grandpa would say, right? About a wonky toaster or something.
Right, like a bit of old school wisdom.
But it turns out it's having a major moment in the world of AI.
It's true. It's one of those deceptively simple ideas, that garbage in, garbage out idea. But the implications are huge. We're not just talking about like messing up a spreadsheet.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. We've got two really interesting pieces here.
Yeah, one that tackles that bigger picture of GIGO.
Right. And then another one that's laser focused on AI prompting, which, let's be real, feels like it's becoming less of a sci-fi thing and more of a, oh, this is my life now kind of thing.
It's true. And with AI becoming so central to everything, understanding GIGO is more important than ever, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's like one of those things you kind of get on a surface level, but both of these sources went way deeper.
Yeah, they really did. Like you see the headlines about AI bias and things like that.
Right. And I was struck by how they highlighted things like healthcare and hiring being impacted. That's a whole other level of uh-oh. So, for those of us who don't speak fluent algorithm, break it down. How does bad data actually mess with stuff in the real world?
Imagine for a second a medical diagnosis. It all seems clear cut,
Yeah.
right? But what if that diagnosis hinges on a blood test and the blood test results are wrong?
Okay, so it's not just numbers on a screen anymore.
Exactly. Or think about a hiring algorithm, the kind used by more and more companies. Now, what if that algorithm was trained on data that's biased against certain types of people?
Okay, yeah, suddenly those abstract data sets are about real people's lives.
Right, that's where it hits home. This abstract idea of GIGO is having real world consequences that impact all of us.
That is a lot more intense than my usual, like, baking analogy. Instead of a lopsided cake, we're talking about people's jobs, their health. I'm starting to see why the quality of that initial input, even if it seems small at the time, is so crucial.
It's huge. And this is where AI gets really interesting because just like that hiring algorithm, AI is only as good as the information it's trained on. Feed it biased data. Well, you get biased results.
It's like teaching a kid to speak, but they've got a mouthful of marbles or something. No matter how hard they try, the output is going to be a little jumbled.
That's a great way to put it.
Yep.
And what's more, our second course takes this a step further, talking about how we actually talk to AI. It's not just the data itself, but how we're asking for things, right?
So it's like AI is this powerful but very literal friend. We need to be incredibly precise with our instructions because they don't get our usual human nuances.
Exactly. It's like giving someone directions. You can be clear, but if you leave out a crucial turn, they'll end up somewhere, just not where they're supposed to be.
So no more rambling emails or vague requests if we want to get the most out of AI.
Not if you want results that are actually useful. It's really about understanding how AI thinks, how it processes information, and then tailoring your communication to that.
Okay, so this is where those specific tips from the source on AI prompting come in handy. Give us the inside scoop on how to talk to AI like a pro.
Well, one of the biggest takeaways, and it sounds simple, but it's crucial, be specific. Yeah, don't be afraid to really lay things out, provide that all important context.
So, like, AI needs the why behind the what.
In a way, yes. And don't be afraid to break things down. If you've got a complex task, treat it like a recipe. Break it into steps.
So, AI as a master chef who needs each ingredient precisely measured.
Exactly. And one more thing, iterate, iterate, iterate.
Iterate, meaning don't expect to nail it on the first try.
Right. AI is a powerful tool, but you're going to get better results if you're willing to refine your prompts, tweak things, and see what happens.
This is starting to sound a lot like, good communication skills in general. Being clear, specific, willing to adjust how you're explaining something. Maybe we should all be talking to each other like we talk to AI.
Maybe so. It's interesting how these AI insights can be applied to, well, just about any area of life. But before we get too distracted, I do want to go back to something we were talking about earlier, this idea of GIGO being everywhere.
Right, because it's not just about algorithms and spreadsheets gone rogue.
Exactly. It affects us in ways we don't even realize. One area where GIGO often flies under the radar is in our everyday decision-making. We like to think we're being rational, right?
Yeah, making good choices based on solid info.
But the reality is our brains are constantly bombarded with biases, assumptions, things we've heard that might not even be true. All of that factors in.
Okay, yeah, that sounds familiar. It's like that thing where you're scrolling through social media and you only like the posts that already agree with what you already believe.
Exactly. Confirmation bias at its finest.
Ah.
That is GIGO in action. If we're only feeding our minds information that reinforces what we already think, we're missing the full picture.
It's like trying to navigate with only half a map. You might think you're making progress, but you're probably just going in circles. So, how do we break free?
It's about actively seeking out different perspectives, even if they make us uncomfortable. It's about questioning what we think we know. And most importantly, being willing to change our minds when presented with new information.
So, it's less about clinging to our beliefs and more about treating them like working theories that are always open to being updated.
Exactly. And the more diverse and accurate the information we feed our brains, the better equipped we are to actually navigate the world, make sound judgments, all of that. We're all works in progress, after all.
I like that, a world of constantly updated mental models. Welcome back to the deep dive. We're picking up right where we left off, exploring this whole idea of GIGO. And so far we've mostly been talking about it on a personal level, like how it affects our individual choices and all that.
Right. But now I think it's time to zoom out a little.
Go bigger?
Exactly. Because GIGO doesn't just play out in our own heads. It's happening on a much larger scale, impacting society as a whole.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that when you've got things like algorithms making decisions that affect huge groups of people.
Exactly. And it's not just about algorithms either. Think about the spread of misinformation, especially in this age of social media.
Oh, man, don't even get me started. It's like everyone's got a megaphone and no one's fact checker.
That's a great way to put it. And that right there is GIGO in action, but on a massive scale. False or misleading information, it spreads so quickly. And it affects everything.
Public opinion, elections, even just people's trust in, well, everything. It's kind of terrifying, honestly.
It really is. And it highlights why being able to sort through information to figure out what's true and what's not is more crucial than ever. We can't just consume everything we see and hear without like a healthy dose of skepticism.
It's almost like we need to be more mindful, more critical, not just of the information itself, but of our own reactions to it,
100%. It's that self-awareness piece that's so crucial. Recognizing our own biases, being willing to admit when we're wrong. That's how we avoid falling into those GIGO traps.
Yeah. It's like we all have a responsibility to be guardians against bad information, both for ourselves and for the people around us.
I love that. GIGO guardians, I like the sound of that. Because it really is a collective effort. We're all in this together, right?
Right. Okay, but it can't be all doom and gloom, can it? There's got to be a way to flip this whole GIGO thing on its head and use it for good, right?
Oh, absolutely. For every example of GIGO leading to problems, there's also the potential for it to be a force for positive change.
Okay, I'm listening. Give me some hope here.
Well, think about the incredible things happening with open source data. People are collaborating, sharing information freely, and it's leading to amazing innovations.
Right, from scientific breakthroughs to like apps that help people in their everyday lives.
Exactly. And we're seeing more and more people using technology for good, whether it's developing new medical treatments or tackling issues like climate change.
So it's not about like demonizing technology or data itself. It's about being smart, ethical, and intentional with how we use it.
100%. And that takes all of us. It's about demanding better from the people and systems in power, making sure that technology serves humanity, not the other way around.
So basically, it's GIGO awareness on a global scale. Like, if we can get everyone thinking about this stuff, maybe, just maybe, we can steer things in a more positive direction.
Now you're getting it.
Yes.
It starts with these conversations. It starts with raising awareness, challenging the status quo, and demanding better. Because ultimately, the future we create is up to us.
Welcome back to the deep dive. It feels like we've covered so much ground already, talking about GIGO and its impact on everything from our personal choices to, like, the future of society.
It really is one of those concepts that just seems to expand the more you think about it, isn't it?
It totally is. And it's easy to get stuck on all the things that can go wrong, the mistakes, the biases. But before we wrap things up, I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier, which is this idea that GIGO can actually be a force for positive change.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's crucial to remember. Yes, GIGO highlights potential pitfalls, but it also gives us this amazing opportunity to design better systems, to make smarter choices, and create a better future.
So how do we actually do that? How do we harness GIGO for good?
Well, it starts with a shift in mindset, honestly. Instead of thinking of GIGO as something to be afraid of, we can see it as a design principle, a way to think about how we create anything, products, systems, even our own habits.
So instead of letting GIGO be this warning sign, it becomes like a tool for building something better.
Exactly. What if we approach every challenge thinking, okay, what are the inputs here? What biases might be at play? And then design with those things in mind, building in resilience, adaptability.
It's like GIGO goes from being this thing we're trying to avoid to something we're actively using to make things better.
That's the idea. And I think that's where the real power of understanding GIGO comes in. It's not just about preventing bad things from happening. It's about actively creating good things.
I like that a lot. But okay, how do we make that happen in real life? What are some actual steps we can take to use this GIGO power for good, both in our own lives and on a bigger scale?
It starts with awareness. Pay attention to the information you're taking in, the choices you're making every day, even just asking yourself, what are the inputs shaping my life right now? Are those inputs aligned with what I care about, with my goals?
So, kind of like taking inventory of your own personal GIGO ecosystem.
Yes. And once you have that awareness, you can be more intentional about the information you consume, the people you surround yourself with, the products you buy. It all matters.
It's like aligning our actions with our values.
Yeah.
And those values include being GIGO aware.
Exactly. And I truly believe that as more and more people start thinking this way, we will see a real shift on a societal level even.
It's like a GIGO revolution.
I love it. We're demanding better, more transparency, more ethical practices.
Yeah.
Because we understand the stakes.
That's a revolution I can definitely get behind. This has been eye-opening, to say the least. GIGO is a lot more nuanced than I think I ever realized.
Me too.
But I think the big takeaway here is that it's not about being afraid of it. It's about understanding it, using that knowledge, and hopefully shaping a better future because of it.
Well said.
And on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this GIGO adventure, everyone. Hopefully you've learned something new, maybe had some of your assumptions challenged. And hey, if you're feeling inspired to go out and make a difference, even better.
That's what it's all about.
Until next time, happy diving.